You wrote 12-team Superflex. I mean, but this
That's
is
12. I copied it.
you lazy man. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the DLF Trade Show. We have a special edition, double feature DLF Trade Show today because I don't know about you, Addison, but it's rookie draft SZN season, baby. I still have 2 startups going because I'm a degenerate. I have 4 or 5 drafts going and 2 auctions going right now, and my head is spinning. But still, it is rookie draft season, so I thought, what better way? I'll claim credit for something whenever I possibly can with this show because you literally do all the legwork. I just start talking. But I'm like, maybe we should do the 101. And you're like, should we do Superflex or 1QB? Let's do both. So that's what we're here. That's what we're doing. But before we do get into it, we get into the show. How you doing, Addison? You have a good draft? Hey, man, you too, right? Freiermuth to the Steelers. You got to be stoked.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I'm stoked from a non-fantasy perspective. As Steelers and Penn State fan, I'm stoked about that pick. And I have rookie drafts going as well. I had one. My DLF Cup rookie draft took about a day and a half to do. I don't know. Everybody was like on top of it. And then I'm in the middle of my home league one right now. So
yeah, my home league is the one that we do before the draft because I created the league and I didn't have any of those. So I'm like, we're going to do that now. And, they didn't have a choice.
Nice.
All right, but who cares about those drafts? We're going to care about the drafts for these 2 teams that we're about to talk about. Just to run you through the show, I say we exactly, like I try and take credit whenever I can, but Addison goes through the DLF Trade Finder, finds trades about players, or in this case, picks that we want to talk about the value of. And then, again, Addison puts it in the DLF Trade Analyzer, pulls out the scores, and then gives us a little background on both of the teams because #context matters. And then we'll talk about how we feel about the trade for the teams, talk about how we feel about the trade based on value, and then how we feel about it with the DLF Analyzer's value. And then make it nice and shiny, buff it out, make it nice and smooth, and we call it a show. But we're going to do that twice today, so let's just get going. Our first trade is we're going to do Superflex first because Addison put it first. Our trade is the 101 for Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. This is a 12-team Superflex, and that's all it says. The trade was made on April 30th, but I think trades with the 101 at least for Superflex, it's Trevor Lawrence, so I don't think the value changed in the past 5-6 days. So
this was made like halfway through round 2, I think. I looked at when the timestamp was. April 30th was Friday, so it was like halfway through round 2 of the NFL draft.
Yeah, I really just don't think it matters for this one because show me a draft where Trevor Lawrence didn't go first is really what it comes down to. I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure someone like a Bears fan took Fields or something because they just got super excited. But we'll call
in your Trade Addicts league.
Oh yes, and J-Mike, who has the entire first round except for 113, the consolation pick. He told me he's going to pick Lawrence at 108 just because it'll make one of his last year's trades look better because he actually went through and plotted out what each pick turned into. But again, we're not here to talk about that league. We're here to talk about this league. Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry for the 101. Why don't you walk us through the 2 teams?
Yeah, so to quickly run through the 2 teams here because we're going to have to do this twice for both trades. Team A, the team that gave up Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, they went 12-4 last year. And then I don't really know what happened to their team or how they went 12-4 because their team currently is Cam Newton is their only quarterback. They have no one at running back. They have 4 complete backup running backs. CeeDee Lamb, Chase Claypool, and Julio Jones at wide receiver. And then Noah Fant and Rob Gronkowski at tight end. So they have nobody. And I have no idea how they went 12-4. I was trying to find trades. Did they sell a lot of their assets off? And
maybe there was a dispersal or something because I don't know. That's scary.
I don't know. But that is at least what they're looking like because I think it looks like they're going complete rebuild. So them trading for the 101 makes sense in this instance. Team B, the team that traded away the 101 for Tannehill and Henry, went 9-7 last year. But looking at their roster, they look much more like a team who would benefit from moving away from the 101. Their quarterbacks are Ryan Tannehill now and Sam Darnold. Their running backs, Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, and Kareem Hunt. Then they have Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Jarvis Landry at wide receiver, and Mark Andrews and Robert Tonyan at tight end. And then they also had the 102 as well. And their rookie draft is going right now. They took Trey Lance at that pick. So they added Trey Lance to Tannehill and Darnold.
Man, that is actually solid. So this trade in general, thinking about it from both sides, I think I would do it for both. Like, this is, when you think about it on its own, it's a little bit of an overpay. Like, let's put it what it is. Derrick Henry, at least for this year, is going to be a top 10 running back. They didn't take anyone, didn't draft anyone, didn't sign anyone to get in his way. And Ryan Tannehill he won't get the respect he deserves for the fantasy output he gives. So his value is a little lower, but still, in startup drafts right now, Tannehill's probably going in the second or third round because the way quarterbacks go, and just because of the fantasy output he gives, it's deserved. So Derrick Henry in the second, Tannehill in the third. You give up your second and third to move up to the first, which is where you're drafting Lawrence if you want to get him in a startup. So yeah, I'm completely fine with this trade, especially based on the teams, because in a Superflex league, when you're rebuilding, you rebuild around quarterbacks, and if you have to rebuild around a quarterback, you rebuild around Trevor Lawrence. I mean,
right.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's perfect. And, you have CeeDee Lamb, Chase Claypool. I mean, get whatever you can for Julio Jones and Gronk and just move on. But perfect. No, I love this trade for both sides, because when the dude was 9-7 last year and apparently only really had Darnold, walking in with Tannehill and Darnold and having Trey Lance I don't think he's starting. So even if he comes in mid-season with his rushing upside, I'm a huge Lance fan. So I think this is perfect. I think this is a great move for both teams. How do you feel?
I'm just going to echo everything that you just said. I mean, I feel the exact same way. It was a little bit of an overpay for just the 1.01. But, from both sides, looking at both teams, the directions that they're both going, exactly what you said. You're building around Trevor Lawrence. You want to, in a Superflex league specifically, if you're rebuilding, you want to figure out your quarterbacks first and foremost, because they have the longest longevity in terms of career lifespan. You can figure those out, figure out the wide receivers kind of as you're going as well. Running backs and tight ends are last. So to be able to grab Trevor Lawrence as your, staple quarterback to move forward with is a fantastic move to make there, and moving away from Tannehill and Henry. Whereas the other team getting Tannehill and Henry, they already had the 102. So they're looking at it as, well, I don't need Lance and Trevor Lawrence. I can get Ryan Tannehill and add on, like you said, a top 10, if not top 5 running back for at least 2021, maybe 2022 as well. It's solid to me on both fronts for what both teams are trying to accomplish. And I think it's a pretty fair trade all around whenever you're considering, this is what you need to do to get the 101, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's talk about what the DLF Trade Analyzer brought this out to be. The 101 is 700 points in the Trade Analyzer, flat even 700. Let's go to the other side. Derrick Henry, 448.3. Ryan Tannehill, 401.5. Man, if he was only 40 points. All right, so that gives us a total of, including the package adjustment, 820.6 to 700, which 120 points is a difference of about the 205, 206. What we both said, we both said that this is a little bit of an overpay, but would you let the 205 or 206 stop you from getting Trevor Lawrence? No, absolutely not. And if you do, maybe you need to step back a little bit and just realize what's at the 205 and 206, no matter how good a class you think it is. So absolutely.
Well, specifically in this class too.
Yeah.
That's about the drop-off point in a Superflex, if not slightly earlier.
That's a little later than the drop-off for me, but I'm on some of those later wide receivers, which is weird for me because I love wide receivers. So yeah, I agree with the... I do think Tannehill should be worth more, but this really is, I think, along the lines with his consensus value, which is exactly what calculators try and give, right? So this isn't the Dynasty Outhouse trade calculator, which, man, I need one of those. But this is perfect. I think all of the values in here are correct. And again, I agree with the outcome where it's off by about a second, and who cares? You're going to do that anyway. And I got to be honest, I probably would have traded the 101 if I was this guy, because, man, he does not have a lot of pieces on his team. But again, starting with Trevor Lawrence is a great, great way to start your rebuild. Do you have any strong feelings about the values in the analyzer?
Nope. I'm pretty solid with all of it. The Superflex one, I think, was the easiest of the two trades that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. And since that's everything about that Superflex trade, let's scroll down to page 2 of our Google Doc right now, and let's go to the 1QB. So this is a 12-team 1QB trade and 12-team 1QB league in which there was a trade for the 101. Let's talk about the trade. The 101 for Aaron Jones and Chris Carson. Before we get into it, why don't you tell us about these teams a little bit?
Sure. Yep. Team A, the team that gave up Aaron Jones and Chris Carson, they went 6-7 last year. Looking at their team, I'm not really sure what direction that they're trying to go for. I'm assuming that they're probably going to try and push for more of a rebuild, and they're just trying to move some more assets and stuff. Mm-hmm. Quarterback, they have Lamar Jackson and Tua Tagovailoa. Running back, again, they don't have anybody now that they gave away Jones and Chris Carson. A wide receiver, they have Tyler Lockett, Deebo Samuel, and Darnell Mooney were the only notable names there. And they have Gronk at tight end. So I think trading for the 101 indicates they're trying to get younger and move more in that direction with their two quarterbacks. Team B, the team that gave up the 101 for Aaron Jones and Chris Carson, came in last place last year, finishing 3-10, which is why they naturally got the 1.01. They looking at their team though, I think that they got unlucky in 2020. They have Justin Herbert and Kirk Cousins at quarterback, solid in 1QB. Running backs, they had Christian McCaffrey, and I think that they suffered a lot because of Christian McCaffrey missing the entire year.
They had 3 really good games.
Right. Yes, they did.
Wait, they went 3-10. I bet you it was those 3 games.
Those 3 games. Yep. So then, so they had CMC. Then they just added Aaron Jones and Chris Carson.
Yep.
Wide receivers, they only had Calvin Ridley at wide receiver, basically.
They're set. It's fine.
And Mark Andrews at tight end is their roster. So I feel like they can make a little bit more of a push. I still feel like they're kind of middle of the pack. But it's an interesting trade whenever you consider, that they naturally got the 101 and now they're preferring Aaron Jones and Chris Carson over who they would have gotten at the 101, which we can talk about because their draft also
go for it.
Went for it. So their draft is done. And I was looking at their draft results. The team that traded for the 101 in this trade ended up going Najee Harris with that pick. They also had the 1.03. They took Kyle Pitts. Jamar Chase was the 102. 203, they got Elijah Moore. 207, they got Khalil Herbert. And 303, they got Jamar Jefferson. Was their entire draft pick. Mm-hmm. Team B went Jalen Waddle at the 110. And then Terrace Marshall at the 201. Zach Wilson at the 301. And then Josh Palmer at the 401 was their complete draft. So some interesting. They added Jalen Waddle to Calvin Ridley, at least in that sense.
Yeah.
So they have now 1.5 wide receivers, I guess. But yeah, that's at least the full complete context for this 101 one quarterback trade.
Well, I feel like I talked a whole of a lot last episode, so why don't you tell me how you feel about the trade?
Yeah, so at least from the team that got the 101, I really liked it from their perspective until they made the Najee Harris pick. I would have went with Jamar Chase. Because I think you can have a completely separate conversation in terms of who would you rather have in Dynasty between Aaron Jones and Najee Harris. I feel like that's pretty Aaron Rodgers dependent. Maybe not, because Aaron Jones I still think can be very, very good if Rodgers is not on the team moving forward. But it's funny because, you could say, well, Aaron Jones for a rookie running back, you're buying age years in that sense. But Aaron Jones is
2 years,
1.5 2 years older than Najee.
Yeah.
So you're buying a couple years, I guess, but you're not buying 4 complete rookie years.
Yeah.
So there is that whole entire aspect to it too. Just from a team building standpoint, I would have went Jamar Chase if I was them. So yeah. Then from the other side, the team that traded away the 101 for Jones and Carson, that becomes more of the would you prefer Jones or Najee conversation. I think Carson can kind of make up for it because he's still the starting running back for the Seahawks for at least the next year or two, with Rashad Penny not getting his 5th-year option picked up either.
Yep. Also
looks really nice. So that at least is really good. And they can get more elite running backs with Christian McCaffrey. Aaron Jones, Chris Carson. It's a very solid core. Calvin Ridley, he was probably looking for somebody at the 110. I don't know if it was actually Jalen Waddle that he was going for, but he added another piece there as well. And this one was a little bit more to digest because there's a lot more going on with this one than the straightforward quarterback Superflex 101. So,
yeah. Okay. So to start from the beginning. I completely agree with you. Well, I guess it's not the beginning. I'm cutting your conversation in half. Man, I would have taken Chase at the 101. Just
100%.
I get that you don't necessarily usually draft rookie wide receivers, especially at the 101. I've been burned by Corey Davis and N'Keal Harry, and well, I guess nobody was really burned by Laquan Treadwell at the 101, but the 2 through the 5 of that draft murdered a lot of people, me absolutely included. And I don't care in this case. Like Jamar Chase, we know what Jamar Chase is, and plus, like the way this team is built, it's just our running back's not going to get you anywhere. So
yeah, my question is, if you're moving Jones and Carson for the 101, what is the thought process behind taking Najee then? Like, why not just hold the 2 running backs?
The only thing I could think of is maybe they don't realize how old he is, and maybe they think they're resetting a little bit. That's the only.
Or they think Najee's that much better.
That's also a distinct possibility, and maybe they think Najee is the end all be all when they don't realize that the Steelers' offensive line isn't exactly what it used to be. Neither is Ben's arm. Sorry, but it's so. I love the landing spot. I still love it, but I still think he's not going to be. Is he going to be a top 10 running back? I think.
That's the ceiling. I think year one, just on pure volume, he's going to be at least top 15 running back.
Absolutely, yes, but to break into, he's going to need to get a lot of passes to break into that, and we know that Aaron Jones gets them, especially with Jamal Williams gone. AJ Dillon's not catching the ball, and Chris Carson, again, another one of those guys that will never get the respect he deserves based on draft capital, probably at this point. Still, plus he does get hurt a bit, but still, with knowing that having the specter of Rashad Penny season off of his shoulders and only having really DJ Dallas behind him, I think it should be full go on Chris Carson, even if just for this year and not maybe next year too. So if I have the 101 and I'm looking to compete, like this guy clearly just went to push, yeah, I would absolutely do this trade, because I think both of Jones and Carson, when you add to CMC, I don't build my team through running backs just as a personal preference, but if you're going to, this is how you do it. I mean, like having CMC, Aaron Jones, and Chris Carson with your quarterback being Justin Herbert, and hopefully you don't have to start 3 wide receivers, but even if you have to start 2, starting the super solid Calvin Ridley and then having a guy like Jalen Waddle be your kind of best ball second wide receiver, that's a really good lineup that has a little bit of variance that can put you over the top or lose you a couple of games if Waddle catches one pass for 10 yards. But, you kind of take that risk, especially with your tight end with Mark Andrews also, because he's very efficiency dependent. Let's put it that way. So I like this trade for the 101, but I guess the Najee thing, knowing that now just sort of breaks my brain a little bit. And but as a value, let's just completely talk about value. It's fair, because given what their actual value is, I think you probably have to add about a second on top of Aaron Jones to get to Najee Harris. And while he shouldn't be what he's worth, that's pretty much what Chris Carson is kind of worth. So I'm completely fine with the value of this trade. I prefer the running backs or taking Chase. But again, that's not necessarily part of our argument for this, because we're just talking about the 101, not the player itself. So when we strip it back to just the 101, I think this is a very fair trade, which I don't know if it should be when you get the 101, but the analyzer, I guess, disagrees a little bit, because the analyzer has it kind of close to what our last trade was. We have the 101 still set at 700 points, which was a very big conversation in the DLF. What do we call our Slack? That's the word. Couple of months ago, like a month or two ago, where should they be the same value? Whatever. It doesn't matter. Argument for another day. But 700 for the 101. Aaron Jones 599.1. Let's just call him 600. That's just disrespectful. And Chris Carson 270.6. So after the package adjustment, 845.4 to 700. Seeing that, I give my same argument Like, you should have to overpay to get the 101. You paid here. This says it's a difference of the 203 to 204, which is pretty much the exact same thing. I don't know if maybe they have Aaron Jones a little higher than I thought they would, or because they definitely have Chris Carson around ish, maybe even a little higher than I thought they would. So maybe consensus is a little higher on running backs, and that is absolutely a personal bias of mine. Like, I take full responsibility on that one. So I guess when it comes down to it, consensus shows that this is exactly what the trade should be.
Yeah. Especially in one quarterback. I mean, all these running backs are getting propped up in one QB because you're not taking any of those quarterbacks, you know? Exactly.
That's a very fair point that I'm not used to anymore because I'm in, I think, one quarterback league these days. So I have to say, given the values in the analyzer, this trade is perfect. It's exactly what it should be. I wish it was Chase.
Yeah. That throws it all off, I think. Because I would have went Chase as well. Usually, I am still like a Najee 101 guy. If your team is meant for Najee,
if you trade for because the rookie draft is where you get running backs, right? Like having to pay for them in the startup and in trades gets really, really expensive. So here's where you get it, and why give up Aaron Jones, who at least probably has 2 more years of putting up better numbers than Najee does? And when that happens, you're going to have to be selling Najee for the price what you're selling Aaron Jones for now.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more because he won't be on a second contract yet, but we're still talking the same age. So we're going to keep talking about the same thing over and over again, just because it comes down to, like, we like Najee, but not in the context of this trade. So, again, given the values of the analyzer and me being biased against running backs, I'm going to have to say this is a good trade. And if you are looking to get the 101, settle for throwing away a running back or wide receiver 1 and then a running back and wide receiver 2 on top of it to get the 101. I think that's something I would do, and it's something you would have to do to get it.
Yeah. I think that's what both of these trades in both one quarterback and Superflex kind of displayed, is that you have to overpay a little bit in terms of what the consensus thinks to be able to, grab these 101s. And because they are like, and it's funny because people have that conversation of, well, Trevor Lawrence is valued less than the 101, but like the 101 could be anybody. And the 101 is also injury proof. The 101 is situation proof. It's you have to think of it in terms of how that pick itself is being valued. And you can once you turn that, pick into an actual player and give it a name, it completely changes its value for how that one looks. So you're paying for the upside and the ceiling and the not
the
so
power.
much the question mark,
100% the power of taking whoever the heck you want. Yes.
So you have to overpay a little bit. And some of these people might not think that they overpaid. But I like both the trades for, at least situationally, how both of these teams looked in both trades, the Superflex and the one quarterback.
Absolutely. And that will wrap it up. And I think we did this show of 2 trades shorter than 1 or 2 of the shows we did only talking about 1 trade. So there you go. Rock and roll. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of the DLF Trade Show. I am your host, Russ Fisher at Dynasty Outhouse, Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes_. Got it right. And see you next time. I have no idea what we're talking about next time, but we'll see you then. There you go.
I'm not going to end the recording yet because I might append this at the end.
Cool.
Did you understand the arguments for why the picks are the same in the trade analyzer?
Well, yeah, because I guess I brought it up, but not explaining it's a little tough. It's because it's the value of the players around it. The value of the pick itself doesn't necessarily matter. It's the relation of the players around the pick that matters, which is why completely, again, I thought both Jones and Carson were listed a little higher than they should be, because it's 1 QB and that does push running backs up a lot in their value. Yeah. And I'm still, that's my fault, but absolutely that's, I don't agree with it, but I agree with the concept of it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. It was a really interesting conversation that we had in our Slack. Cause if I am, I don't know if I'm going to append this or not, but if I am, this is the explanation for the viewers out there on why the 101 is valued at 700 in both one quarterback and Superflex. Even though, you can make the argument that Trevor Lawrence in a Superflex should be worth more than Najee or Jamar Chase in a one quarterback. They're valued the same because their values don't matter. Like whatever number you give that number,
right?
It literally doesn't matter. What matters is where that number fits in relation to the rest of the players, you know, and their numbers, right? So in Superflex, that 700 number is like a top 10 number, I think, in the trade analyzer. There's only like 8 or 9 players that have a number higher than 700. It's like Pat Mahomes and Kyler Murray and Josh Allen and Dak Prescott. You know, basically like those quarterbacks that you would 100% take over 101 are the only players being valued ahead of the 101 in Superflex. But in a one quarterback, that jumps to maybe 15 or 20 players that are valued ahead of 700 in 101 or in one quarterback, you know, because now you have not any real quarterbacks probably, but you're talking about, you know, potentially 10 running backs, probably a handful of wide receivers as well. You know, like you start having those conversations about where the 101 fits in one quarterback. So,
right. And I just pulled it up just for complete black and white comparison. Aaron Jones is 418.8 in a Superflex league on the Trade Analyzer right now. So to show you that number 700 doesn't necessarily mean anything, but what did I say? 418? Like that's almost a 200 point. That's 184 points, 181 points. There you go. Words, numbers, actually. So yeah, the number 700 doesn't mean anything until you put other numbers around it. And that just shows you how the difference between Aaron Jones in 1QB and Superflex, like that's a very different difference. Between the two. So yeah, again, I get it conceptually, but I don't know. It's a very different argument that even if you are going to put this at the end, it's not worth me getting into my argument, but because we're just we're talking about what it is and why I brought it up and everything like that. So yeah, 100%. 700 is just a number they chose to give, and then they sort of built around that with the value of everything else.
Yep, exactly. I think that's it. I think that's a good explanation.
I got to do it. Yay!
Sweet.